Well, let's move on to our sermon this morning. We're in our sermon series of the things that Jesus said. And we've had some interesting titles, like Jesus said, let's party. Yeah, that was a good one. Jesus said, let's party. And today we're going to talk about Jesus said, who wants a pedicure? Who wants a pedicure? Some of you know the story. Maybe you're just putting it together right now. But Jesus gave pedicures or washed the feet of his disciples. And there's a huge lesson to learn there about what that all means. And you're going to want to be here next week because Glenn is going to be preaching a sermon on not who wants to break the rules, but let's break some rules. Let's break some rules. So all the rule breakers here, anybody that likes to break, you're going to want to hear what Glenn has to say about that because Jesus said, let's break some rules. So we're going to find out what Jesus meant by that. But to talk about this, who wants a pedicure, just doing a little research, the World Economic Forum did a survey of business leaders, and they found that 86% of business leaders feel like the world is in a leadership crisis, that there's no one to lead us, there's no one to look to, and there's a leadership crisis in the world. If you look at other surveys, every institution, just about every single institution in the last 10 years has lost trust with people. Less people trust government, less people trust politicians, less people trust the church. They trust the media less than ever before, and there's a breakdown in trust and a breakdown in leadership. 17% of people in the UK trust politicians. Okay, that's pretty bad. But in America, 9% of people trust Congress. Okay, when you have a survey that says 9% of people believe something, that's the 9% that read the question wrong. Okay, that's pretty bad to say that politicians and people that lead our governments have that little trust. And the church isn't exempt from this. In the last 10 years, trust in religious organizations has gone from 52% to 41%. And so there's a lack of trust. You just look at things like the Catholic child abuse scandals. And if you thought it's over, it's not over yet. They'll continue to come out. The different dioceses in America, one by one, are dropping these bombs of 200 priests here and 500 priests there and 800 priests there that were abusing children and were moved around. And every time that happens, the trust level just goes down another step, another level. If you're in the world that I'm in and you follow other churches and pastors on a regular basis, pastors of mega churches that have great TV ministries and thousands of people following them fall one after the other into sexual sin or into immorality or stealing from the church or some other thing. Last year, there was a pastor who got on TV and asked his followers, the people that listened to him, for $50 million for a new private jet. He already has 3, but he wants the 4th one, and this one, he can go point to point anywhere on the planet for $50 million. And so these things happen, and the trust in leadership begins to fall down. Now, some people take a different approach than this, than I do. But I really believe that as a church, as Christians, we cannot be pointing the finger out to everyone else, saying, well, it's the anti-Christian crowd, or it's these people or the other people. The problem with no one comes to church or no one trusts, it's not anyone else's fault, but we need to look at ourselves. The people we need to look at first is us. We take responsibility for the things that happen in our name. Because the message of Jesus is incredible. It's a message of hope. It's a message of peace. It's a message of joy. It's a message of forgiveness and giving. But so much of the church, I've found, has misrepresented the message of Jesus. And we're paying the consequences of it right now. Because if you ask the average person on the street, what about church? What about Christians? What do they say? Church is full of judgmental people, right? Church is full of people that are hypocrites, and they can go down the list of all the things. And so we have to take a look at ourselves and say, are we representing who Jesus is? But there's all that to say, there's a huge deficit in leadership in our world. Jesus addressed this, and I'm going to read a story to you that shows how Jesus led people and show his heart for leadership. This comes out of John chapter 13. And this is what it says. This is the story. And Jesus knew that the night before Passover would be his last night on earth before leaving the world to return to his Father's side. And all throughout his time with his disciples, Jesus had demonstrated a deep and tender love for them. And now he longed to show them the full measure of his love. We're going to come back to that, showing them the full measure of his love. Before their evening meal had begun, the accuser had already planted betrayal into the heart of Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. And now Jesus was fully aware that the Father had placed all things under his control, for he had come from God and was about ready to go back with him. So he got up from the meal and he took his outer robe off and took a towel and wrapped it around his waist. And he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' dirty feet and dry them with a towel. How amazing is that? But when he got to Simon Peter, he objected and said, "I can't let you wash my dirty feet. You're my Lord." And Jesus replied, "You don't understand yet the meaning of what I'm doing, but soon it'll be clear to you." And Peter looked at Jesus and said, "You'll never wash my dirty feet. Never." "But Peter, if you don't allow me to wash your feet," Jesus responded, "then you will not be able to share life with me." So Peter said, "Lord, in that case, don't just wash my feet, wash my hands and my head too." Don't you love Peter? I mean, this guy is all in, like never to, wash my whole body in 2 seconds. And Jesus said to him, "You're already clean. You've been washed completely. You just need your feet to be cleaned." But that can't be said of all of you, for Jesus knew which one was about to betray him. And that's why he told them that not all of them were clean. And after washing their feet, he put on his robe and returned to his place at the table. "Do you understand what I just did?" Jesus said. "You've called me teacher and Lord, and you're right, for that's who I am. So if I'm your teacher and Lord, and have just washed your dirty feet, then you should follow the example that I've set for you and wash one another's dirty feet. Now do for each other what I have done for you. I speak to you a timeless truth. A servant is not superior to his master, and an apostle is never greater than the one who sent him. So from now on, put into practice what I've done for you, and you will experience a life of happiness and enriched and untold blessings." I'm going to read that first passage again, the first 2 verses. If you have your Bible open, it's probably not divided, but this is really the introduction to this story. It says, Jesus knew the night before Passover would be his last night on earth before leaving the world and return to his Father's side. And although throughout the time with his disciples, Jesus demonstrated a deep and tender love for them. And now, he longed to show them the full measure of his love. I think that love is probably the strongest force and the strongest motivator that we have in life. Every one of us, at our core, at the deepest part of who we are, we want to love someone and to be loved. That is God built inside of us. And it motivates us and it drives us to do all kinds of things. It's what we need and what we long for. Ask any child whose parents have abandoned them, the crushing effect it has on their lives. The people that should love them the most, when they fall and they don't do that, it destroys us. Ask someone who's ever had a divorce. They say that a divorce is more stressful and more difficult for someone than the death of their spouse. They're still alive, but yet there's a separation. That love and that commitment that was there has been broken. We want love to reign in our relationships, in our jobs. Yes, in our jobs. We may say, well, I'm just there for a paycheck, but we want to love the people that we're around 40 hours a week, and we want them to love us, don't we? I mean, let's be honest. We thrive and live on love. It directs so many decisions that we make. People are motivated by significance or by power or by authority, but really all those are just masked attempts to be loved and to have love in our lives. So we're going to look at a few things in this story about love and how Jesus loved his disciples. This act that he did wasn't about their dirty feet. It was about the fact that he loved them, and he wanted to show them how much he loved them. So number 1, the proof of love is in action. Jesus didn't just talk about love. He didn't just say platitudes about love. He didn't get on his phone and tweet, great phrases and quotes about love and memes and all that kind of stuff. He actually did something about it. He took that love and he put it into action. And so many times, love is just like whittled down to a feeling or emotion. And it is that, when you find that true love and you see them walk in the room and your heart leaps and you're excited and you can't wait to spend, that feeling, that emotion is great. But I've been married 25 years, almost 25 years now. We've raised 3 children together. And you begin to find out there's a little bit more to it. That's a part of it. But there's a deeper sense of love and getting to know one another. And because, by now she knows all the bad things about me. She knows all my weaknesses and everything, and she still loves me. Oh, that's incredible. And I can't think of any of her weaknesses. But anyway, I know her strengths. And there's incredible love there. But our love is put into action over the last 25 years. I'll give you a little example. Last night we went for a walk. So we did a really tough kettlebell workout in the afternoon, and our muscles are getting sore. So let's go for a walk, and it's late at night. And where we live in Portishead, little white middle-class Portishead, people are very concerned about the toads. I'm not joking. They're very concerned about the toads. And this time of year, the toads migrate around, and so people walk around at night with buckets, and they're picking them up because they don't want the cars to run over the toads. It's true story. And there's little signs that they put up at this time of year, watch out for the toads in the road and all that kind of stuff. And so we went for a walk, and my wife is absolutely terrified of frogs, toads, any little jumpy things. She's absolutely terrified. And so what did I do? I walked ahead of her with the dog, and there's a toad, watch out, there's a toad. And so I protected her the whole way. Is that a love story or what? But I know she's terrified of toads, because one time I brought one in the house and put it on the table, and she nearly killed me for it. But that's the things. So love is an action word. The way you display your love is through action. So I know there's a lot of uni students here and people that aren't married, and so you're thinking, does he love me? Does she love me? Am I going to find true love? What does love look like? Love is an action, okay? Young ladies, when the guy says, I love you, just don't take it at face value. Is there action behind that? Is there any proof behind it? Verify, okay? We turned our visa our visa paperwork, and we're doing what we say we're going to do. We're not criminals. We're doing everything right. We have we've fulfilled all the requirements. But in order to get our visa approved, our stack of paperwork was probably 150 pages worth of stuff. And right now they're verifying that we say who we say we are. It wasn't just like, we'll take your word for it. If you're thinking about love and marriage and relationships, it's very easy to see, is it put into action, or is it just words? Jesus put it into action when he washed his disciples' feet. Okay, so I need to set this whole kind of scene for you, okay? In the ancient times, it's not like it is today, where there's pavement you walk on, and it's nice and clean, and there's no animals around. In Jesus' day, they rode animals, or the animals carried stuff, and they were on the same roads as the people, and the people wore sandals, and it was just dirt. So dirty, dusty, animal poo, because animals, they don't, go, excuse me, I have to go to the toilet. They just go wherever, and everyone walked through it, and it was muddy and dirty and filthy. So whenever you came into someone's home, there would be someone there, or there would be something there to wash your feet, because you'd be tracking it through the house, and your feet were basically considered the dirtiest part of your body. And so it would have been totally normal for Jesus and his 12 disciples to come into this room and for somebody to wash people's feet. Now, in most homes, if they had slaves at the time, it would be the job of the lowest slave, the lowest ranking person in that house, to wash the feet of whoever came in. If they didn't have someone, you could wash your own feet, but foot washing was the thing to do. Now, it gets even worse because they were going to have a meal together. And the way they ate at this time was not like we do, sitting at a table, with their feet. And, my mom, when I was a kid, said, "Put your feet under the table, and sit there." But you would lay down. So there would be a long, low table on the ground, and they would have these pillows, and you would kind of rest on your elbow, and you would lay down like this, side by side. So you would have someone's feet very, very near your face, okay? And I just described to you what the feet were like. And they were just about ready to sit down for a meal. But no one in that group, none of those 12 disciples, thought that they were the lowest. They were there. They were important people. After all, Jesus had a huge ministry. There were thousands of people following him. I mean, he was recognized when they went places. They'd just come in on Palm Sunday, and there'd been a big hoopla, and thousands of people had been there. And they were thinking, we're going to be the men in charge, okay? And we're important people here, and we're not going to serve anybody. And Jesus gets this bowl and this water, and he washes their feet. It's kind of extraordinary. One of the proofs that the Bible is true is that there's crazy things like this in there, okay? Who would have thought this up? Who would have thought to say, this guy, Jesus, that you should be following, he's a foot washer. I mean, that would have been unheard of at that time. But the story's in there. Number 2. The guarantee of love is security. When there's love in the room, when there's love in the house, when there's love at the table, there's security. Parents, you want to make your kids secure in who they are and where they're from and in their lives. Love them. Pour out love for them. Chas and I, we're kind of getting to the age, all of our friends and the people we grew up with and people we went to college with, their kids are getting our age now. And we've kind of noticed this correlation between kids who have gone to or been a part of healthy churches versus those that haven't. We've kind of noticed that good parents, but a part of an unhealthy church where things are not settled and not good, the kids have a higher tendency not to serve God. Now, there's a load of things that go into that, and every kid makes their own decision. But there is, I think, a correlation between being a part of something unhealthy and insecure as far as their walk with God, and them saying, this thing isn't real. So parents, I just encourage you to raise your children in a church, in a community that's secure, that has love wrapping around it to keep your kids hemmed in and secure. But when there's a lack of love and there's insecurity, there's a whole lot of the walls that are built up. Right? Because things are insecure, so I've got to build walls. I've got to build my fortress, and this is, you stay on your side, and I'm going to stay on my side. But when there's security, we can tear down those walls. We all know that, right? Husbands, wives, when there's insecurity in the relationship, the walls go up. I got to protect myself. And so in this situation, Jesus tears down those walls. Okay, this is what was going on at the time. These disciples thought Jesus was going to set up a kingdom. Like he was going to overthrow the government. He was going to overthrow the Romans. He was going to come riding in. I mean, they've seen him. They've already seen Jesus calm the storm. He spoke to a storm and said, "Be still." Boom, it was still. So they're thinking, oh, great. Jesus is going to cause a hailstorm to come and wipe out the Romans. Or maybe he'll call down fire, because one time the disciples said, "Hey, Jesus, so we call down the fire on these people?" And he's like, "No, what are you guys talking about?" Okay? But they had it all worked up in their mind that they were going to Jesus was going to set up a government, a kingdom, and they were jockeying and fighting over who's going to be the minister of the defense and who's going to be, who's going to be in charge of this and who's going to be in charge of that. I mean, it was all about power for them and a whole lot of insecurity. It says here in John 13:3, now Jesus was fully aware that the Father had placed all things under his control, for he had come from God, and he was about to go back to be with him. So Jesus was able to wash their feet because he was completely secure in who he was. He was able to serve them and take the position of the absolute lowest person, even though he was the greatest, because he was secure in himself. It says right there that he knew who he was. He knew who he was. He knew he was the child of God, the Son of God. He knew where he was from, and he knew where he was going. And when we develop that relationship with God, we become secure in who we are. We know who we are. I know where I'm from. I know who I am. I know what God has done in me. I know where I'm going. I know that He's forgiven me. And all of a sudden there's this security that we can do what Jesus says later on and wash each other's feet. So the guarantee of love is security. If there's insecurity in your marriage or in your relationships or at work, the problem is there's a lack of love. There's selfishness going on. There's self-centeredness going on. And we tear that down. We tear that down by truly loving and serving each other. Number 3, the outcome of love is unity. It says the disciples, this is in another passage in Luke, it says, the disciples bickering over which one of them would be considered the greatest in the kingdom. And Jesus interrupted their argument, saying, the kings and the men in authority of this world rule and oppress over the subjects, claiming that they can do what's good for the people. They are obsessed with how others see them. But this is not your calling. You will lead by a different model. The greatest among you will live as the one called to serve without honor. The greatest honor and authority is reserved for the one who has a servant's heart. The leaders who are served are the most important in their eyes. But in the kingdom, it is the servants who lead. I'm not here with one who serves. Am I not the one who's here that serves you? This is the exact same meal, the exact same story, but in another account of the life of Jesus. This is moments before He washes their feet. They're actually arguing about who's going to be greatest in the kingdom. There's actually a story in the Bible of 2 of the disciples, and these are full-grown men, okay? These are not little boys, these are full-grown men, and they get their mom to come to Jesus and say, hey, Jesus, can one of my sons sit on your right side and one sit on your left side? I mean, this is the maturity level of these guys, okay? Like, send your mom, send your mom to your work and ask your boss if you can have a raise. I mean, really? Yeah, this is where they were. They were so hungry for power. They wanted to be in charge. They wanted to be seen as someone, arguing about who's going to be the greatest. And then Jesus comes with a bowl of water and He washes all their feet. I mean, how humbling is that? When I was doing research on foot washing in ancient times, I came across an article, and I never heard this before, but the title of the article was, if Jesus washed the disciples' feet, women can be in ministry. I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. I wonder what this is all about. And the article pointed out that in the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, the only people that washed feet were women and Jesus. Now, there's a few accounts where men washed their own feet, but only women washed feet. Mary Magdalene washes the feet of Jesus. In Timothy 5 verse 10, it says, widows must wash the feet. And then in Samuel, when David asked Abigail to marry her, she says, I'm your servant to wash your feet. And you go and you read and you find out that yes, the lowest servant, it was a girl or a woman in the homes, and they would wash the feet. Other ancient writers say that it's a great honor and a great virtue. Now, ladies, listen up. When the man comes home from work and his wife washes his feet. Hey, that was ancient times. Never mind. I'm getting in trouble right now. I'm getting the eyes just like beating down on me. But it was the job of women to wash people's feet. And here's Jesus, and He takes off his outer robe. That means his teacher's robe, like he would have worn, his rabbinical robe, took that off, put a towel around his waist, and that also would have been signifying of women, because that's what women did. Women work was washing and cleaning, so he kind of wrapped the towel around his waist like a woman would have done. And so no wonder Peter was like, no way, Jesus, I'm not having that. But he kind of is tearing down again, like he does over and over again, tearing down these barriers and walls between men and women and their roles and who they should be. Peter objected, but if Jesus can wash the feet of women, then women can be in ministry. And so he objected to that. Number 4, the attitude of love is humility. The attitude of love is humility. Jesus washed the dirty, smelly feet of His disciple. Now, how many men here have had a pedicure? I don't want to see. Don't raise your hand. I don't even want to see. Okay? How many men have had a pedicure? None, right? Ladies, they love it. They love to go, sit there, get it cleaned, and I don't know what they do. But anyway, they love it. But these are guys, okay? So I can pretty much say with certainty that these feet were not the best of feet. They had been walking with Jesus for 3 years on his ministry tour. They didn't care about the way their feet looked or they smelled or anything like that. And so Jesus stoops down. I mean, just picture it. And he's washing these smelly, dirty feet. He's their creator. He's their master. He's their Lord. He's their teacher. He's the guy that thousands of people are following. Like, he's the big televangelist guy. I mean, he's got millions of Twitter followers. I mean, he's somebody important. And they're somebody important in their eyes. And there he is. He stoops down and he washes their feet. And then we see Peter, full of pride, right? The exact opposite of Jesus and his humility. Peter is saying to Jesus, "You're not going to wash my feet." Now, first of all, he's probably a little embarrassed because here is the master, the last one that should be washing people's feet, doing it. So they're all a bit embarrassed that no one thought to do this. No one had the guts to do this. So they're a little bit embarrassed. And then so what Peter's saying is, "Jesus, don't wash my feet. I'll do it myself. I'll clean myself. I don't need your help. I don't want you to really serve me." Okay? And it's kind of the way that we do with God. You know, "Jesus, I don't want you to, I don't need your help. I don't need your forgiveness. I'm a good person. See, I've done this, this, and this. Someday I'm going to stand before you, God, and I'm going to say, you see all the good things that I've done, Jesus." And you're going to go, "Wow, woo, you need to come to heaven because you're such a good person." That's what we want, right? That's our pride. I'm doing it myself. I can do it on my own. I don't need your help, Jesus. These other guys, they got dirty feet, and but not me. I can do this all on my own. But Jesus comes in with his humility. What's going to happen is, in just a few hours, Peter is going to deny Jesus. He's going to say, "I don't even know him. I don't even know who this guy is." And he's going to be brought he's going to be humbled and brought very, very low. And then we know the story. Jesus restores him and forgives him. These other guys need you. Oh, and that's where you hear this, religion's for the weak, right? It's a crutch for people that can't handle life on their own. But it's an act of humility. When we come to Jesus, when we accept him as our Savior, it's an act of humility. It's an act of accepting, you know what? I'm not good enough on my own. I'm not smart enough. I'm not righteous enough. I need a Savior. I need someone to help me. And Peter didn't want that at that moment. He wanted to do it on his own, to make it his own way. But the attitude of love is humility. You find that out when you have teenagers. You find that out as you walk with people. You find that out that when you are in life and relationship with people, that it takes humility. That loving someone is obviously sometimes swallowing your words and, okay, But the attitude of love is humility. Number 5, the power of love is grace. It says in this story that there's a guy named Judas. A lot of us know Judas the traitor. So Jesus knew all about this, okay? He wasn't ignorant of the plan whatsoever. But Judas had gone to the religious leaders and the teachers, and he had cut a deal to turn Jesus in. You see, he had Jesus' diary. He knew where Jesus would be. Like, Jesus had a schedule. He would go up on the Mount of Olives and he would pray up there. And they needed to have they needed a place where there wasn't thousands of people around because there would have been a riot. So he said, "I'll tell you what, guys, I'll tell you where Jesus is going to be, where you can arrest him and no one will know, no one will be any the wiser. And you can do this all in secret." So he'd set this whole thing up with the religious leaders, betrayed Jesus. Now this is Judas, the guy who had seen Jesus speak to the wind and the waves. He'd seen Jesus open blind eyes. He'd seen Jesus heal people. He'd seen Jesus walk on water. I mean, he'd seen Jesus do all this stuff, and still he betrayed him. And what it says here in this story that I just read is that Jesus washed the feet of all his disciples, including Judas. Not me. I said, get out of there. At the end of this story, Jesus says, Judas, go and do what you need to do. But that's after he washed his feet. What an incredible act of grace. I believe in the heart of Jesus, he was washing Judas's feet and he was saying, Judas, please, just confess what you've done. Judas, it's not over yet. You haven't gone too far. I'm washing your feet, and if you can turn back to me right now. It's never too late. It's not too late. As he was washing Judas's feet. But yet Judas chooses to continue on with the plan. But what incredible grace of Jesus, that he would wash the feet of his betrayer, the person that would send him to his death. And yet he washed his feet. You haven't gone too far. You're sitting here and you think, I've gone too far. God can never love me. If the people in this room knew who I was, or the thoughts in my mind, or the things that I've done, God knows all of those things. And yet he's here this morning to wash your feet and to offer you grace and mercy. Holding on to unforgiveness, holding on to people's sin destroys relationships. It's a difficult thing. I'll admit, it's not easy for someone in your life that's hurt you or abused you or treated you wrongly to wash their feet. I mean, that's one of these verses in the Bible that you said, I just wish wasn't there, That's when I get on Google and I do the Greek words and I see if there's any way around this. Is there a loophole? Is there a workaround? Is there an exception some way? Maybe that wasn't translated right. Anybody else done that? Just me. Yeah? Okay. Just me. But there isn't. Jesus washed the feet of his accuser, and then he told, or his betrayer, and then he told all of his disciples, you need to do the same thing that I've done. And number 6, the significance of love is influence. And just what Jesus said, he said, so if I'm your teacher and Lord and have just washed your dirty feet, then you should follow the example that I set before you and wash one another's dirty feet. Now do for each other what I have just done for you. Again, the disciples had in their mind that the way they were going to turn the world upside down. I mean, they were going to kick the Romans out. They were going to have a huge military victory. They were going to set up a great kingdom, and they were going to be in charge with their might and their power, and they were going to rule. That was in their mind. But Jesus had a very different plan. He wanted to change the world. Jesus wanted to turn the world upside down. He wanted to revolutionize everything. He wanted to have, like we have today, over 2 billion followers. He had all that in mind, but he went about it in a very, very different way. He went about changing the world by washing people's feet. Not by might, not by strength, not with the sword, not with power and enforcement, but with love. And with washing people's feet. What a different plan. He washed the feet of people that were undeserving. He's washed the feet of people that knew better. But he was able, this little group of guys, this 12 disciples, or 11 after Judas. And then on the day of Pentecost, kind of the day of the kind of the birthday and the start of the church, there were only 120. And from that small group, we have the world that we have today with billions of Christians. Every corner of the globe, the message of Jesus is being preached this morning. How did he do that? He set them this example of washing feet. He set this example of washing people's feet. We want, like Glenn said this morning already, we want to affect our community. We want to affect the people around us. We want to turn Bristol upside down, don't we? We want to empty the hospitals and empty the drug clinics, and we want to empty the prisons. And how do we do that? How do we do that? By washing people's feet. One by one, taking people and say, man, your feet are nasty and terrible. Where have you been? What have you been up to? And yeah, you don't deserve it. You don't deserve help. You don't deserve love. You don't deserve anything, but we're going to wash your feet. We're going to love you and care for you. That will turn the world upside down. Because people are searching for love. They're looking for acceptance. They're not looking for judgment. They're not looking for everyone to tell them what they've done wrong. They're looking for someone to love them. And we got the greatest example in Jesus and what he did by washing his disciples' feet. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, I thank you that you gave us this incredible story. Lord, you could have so easily just commanded one of your disciples to wash everyone's feet, and they would have done it. But Lord, you chose to humble yourself and give us this great example. And Lord, you told us to wash each other's feet. Lord, help us to realize and understand what that means. Every one of us here has people in our lives who really stink. Their feet stink, everything about them stinks, and God's put them in our lives. Maybe he's put them in your life so you can wash their feet. Not that you can hold on to how they've wronged you, but how you can wash their feet, how you can be there for them, how you can love them and help them. Lord, I just pray right now that you would put in our mind that person or people that we can wash their feet, that are completely undeserving, completely, in the wrong, but yet we can wash their feet. We can show them the grace and the love and the mercy of God. Lord, I pray you just speak to us right now. Show us who that is. Give us that name. And Lord, I pray you give us the courage, the strength this week to wash their feet, to love them, to obey what you commanded us to do, to wash each other's feet. And Lord, I just believe that if we do that, we'll see revolution take place. We'll see the world turned upside down. We'll see incredible change in people. But Lord, it takes us making that step. And Lord, we want to do that this morning.